Are you ready for some action? If you are, let's get into Action Jackson. Let's do it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Action Jackson. This film came out in February of 1988. It's an hour and 36 minutes long. It's rated R. It had a budget of $7 million, and upon release it made $20 million. And they were hoping Warner Brothers, Joel Silver, who produced this film, and I know Carl Weathers, they all had hopes that this would become a franchise. Unfortunately, it did not. But let's get into it a little bit. This movie was directed by Craig R. Baxley. This was Craig R. Baxley's first film that he directed by himself. He was a second unit director for years. Up until that point, he had directed a couple A-Team episodes, but not a theatrical film, and this is his first theatrical film. Funny enough, the year before this, Craig R. Baxley was a second unit director on a little film called Predator, which we all know and love because it's a classic. It's awesome. And Carl Weathers, who plays Jericho Action Jackson, was in Predator as well. So we had, and Joel Silver was producer on Predator, so that's how this film came about. Carl Weathers came up with the title and an idea for a film, and Joel Silver was like, okay, let's try to get something together, and this was the result, this film. Craig T. Nelson plays Peter Delaplane, and he is the main villain in this piece. Vanity plays Sydney Ash. Sharon Stone's in this film as Patrice. Thomas F. Wilson's in this movie as a police officer, and everybody knows him as Biff from Back to the Future. And Bill Duke is in this film as well, and he was in Predator as well the year before, and this one he plays the captain of the police department that Action Jackson works for. And pretty much this movie is very simple. It's a straight-up action movie. There's Craig T. Nelson's character, who's married to Sharon Stone, is not a good guy. And he had a run-in with Action Jackson in the past. And so they both don't like each other right from the beginning. And Action Jackson is suspicious of Craig T. Nelson's character because there's these people getting killed off, and they think he's at the center of it. Has to do with the unions in Detroit around the car industry. And basically, Action Jackson gets set up by Delaplane, and the cops think Action Jackson is a dirty cop, so he's on the run with Vanity, who's Delaplane's girlfriend on the side and a singer. And at the end, we get our final battle at the mansion, this mansion that Delaplane's having this party for, and they try to assassinate this union official. Action Jackson stops it, and him and Delaplane square off, and at the end, our hero wins the day. That's pretty much Action Jackson in a nutshell. If you've never seen this film, it's a straight-up 80s action film, just with Carl Weathers. I like Carl Weathers. He was great in the Rocky franchise. He was a perfect foil to Stallone's Rocky Balboa in those films. And then, even though you don't kind of like his character in the first Rocky film, you get to appreciate him more as they go down the line. And his character definitely had an arc going forward through the 4 films he was in the Rocky franchise. Obviously, he was in Predator, and he was fantastic in Predator. It's kind of like the scumbag bureaucrat who comes around eventually once they see they're in a dire situation. So I've always liked Carl Weathers. He's always been very charismatic. He was a football player before he was an actor. And he always came off well on screen. He's good here in the title role. Craig T. Nelson makes a very interesting bad guy. Craig T. Nelson's always good when he's on screen. I've always enjoyed his performances through the years whenever he pops up. Obviously, he was in Poltergeist. He was on Coach for years. I liked him on that show. And any movie he ever popped up on, he was always good. Sharon Stone's fine. This is an early film role for her. I mean, she'd done a lot of TV up to this point, and she did some other films, but she didn't really get any notoriety until Basic Instinct. And she was in Total Recall, too, but in a small role. Thomas F. Wilson's funny in this role in the film. He doesn't have a lot to do. He shows up from time to time as a police officer. He cracks some jokes. And him and this other officer that are a team in the police force, they play off each other really well. And Bill Duke's good as the captain. Across the board, the acting is fine. The problem is the script. The script is probably the most issue. This film has an identity crisis of sorts. It wants to be very serious, and then but then at other moments it takes the action over the top, almost into silly territory. Not that I don't like this film. I do like this film, but that's where I think the movie fails, is in the script level. I don't think they nailed the tone they were going for. I guess you could blame Craig R. Baxley for it too. It was his first theatrical film. I think the action's filmed nicely when it does happen, and there's quite a bit of action in this film. And he's always been a good action director. I think he's got better after this. Like Stone Cold, I think, is a better action movie overall, and I Come in Peace or Dark Angel. And then he went on to do other films. But the action's pretty well shot in this film. I think on a script level and tone, I think it's at odds with itself overall, if I had to critique the film. Other than that, the acting's fine. Carl Weathers is great as our main lead, our hero. He plays the role really, really well. I have no complaints about the acting in this film at all. I think its tone is my biggest problem. It doesn't know if it wants to be a serious R-rated action film or a goofy action film. And at times it butts heads with each other. Those tones just clash. And they're very apparent on screen when it happens. Like, you'll have a serious action scene and all of a sudden something outlandish happens, and it's like, it doesn't feel right in this film. It's like the film didn't know what it wanted to be. I mean, when the film was released, it did make some money. Other than that, though, I like this film. Also in the film, Sonny Landham shows up, and he was in Predator 2 as Billy, and he shows up briefly as a drug dealer that Action Jackson kicks the shit out of. And that's about it. They were hoping this was going to be a franchise. It didn't happen that way. I would give Action Jackson 7 out of 10. I enjoyed this film. I have issues with the tone of it at points in time. But overall, it's a fun movie. It's a fun R-rated action movie from the 80s. Typical 80s action film. And if you like those kind of movies, you'll probably like this one. Yes, there's some dumb shit in it, but you can have a good time. And Carl Weathers is really good in this film, and so is everybody else. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for Action Jackson. Have you ever seen this film? If you have, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this movie. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. You all stay safe out there, take care of each other, and I will be back soon with another review. Thanks. Bye.